Yo, what is going on guys, Flashverse here and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 7. Now that we have finally finished the whole season, I wanted to give you guys my overall thoughts on the entire season, talk about the things I liked and disliked, and just give you guys my overall opinions on the season. So yeah, it's pretty much a Season 7 overview for The Flash. Now we do know that this season was split into 3 parts. God Complex, which is the Forces storyline, aka graphic novel number 3. Interlude Part 1, which is the 3 filler episodes between episode 12 and 14. And then the Godspeed Imperative, which is graphic novel number 4, aka the Godspeed Storyline. So I will review all 3 parts individually and give my overall judgment on the season towards the end. Obviously I do have good stuff to say, but let me just start off by saying I love this show. I love this show so much. It is my second favorite show of all time, and that will never change regardless of what happens, and I will continue to do Flash videos until this show ends because I love this show a lot. So if I do get into a rant as I go over my issues for the season, I am not trying to hate on the show or anything like that. I'm just critiquing. I want the show to be at its best. Now, I'm happy for you guys if you are enjoying the things I have an issue about, but yeah, that's perfectly fine. You're entitled to your own opinion. That's absolutely fine, and I will never, go at you for liking something which I don't like, because that's your opinion and my opinion is different. I would never do that. If you enjoy it, that's perfectly fine. So yeah, just please take into account that I'm not trying to hate on the show or anything like that. I'm just giving you guys my opinion in regards to what I'm having issues with and then what I'm liking with the show this season. But before I go over anything, however, you guys don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so firstly, I will go over the Forces storyline as that is the first storyline of the season. So the Forces storyline for me was unwatchable. There are definitely more things I absolutely disliked than I liked. So firstly, going over the things I liked about the Forces storyline, I thought that it was off to a good start. I thought that episodes 4 and 5 were amazing, and it was doing a pretty good job in setting up the storyline, so I thought that the first 2 episodes of the storyline were the best 2 episodes of that graphic novel. Although he had been sidelined for most of the season, Grant Gustin continued to kill it as always as Barry Allen, aka The Flash. I did also like seeing Barry do some forensic work since we barely got to see that during The Flash Season 6. So yeah, that was a good addition to the graphic novel as well. Now going over the things I disliked about the storyline, the overall aesthetic and the tone of the graphic novel. Now a lot of this graphic novel was not serious at all. In fact, it was one of the goofiest seasons of The Flash we have had compared to the tone of the earlier seasons where it was serious when things got intense, and then we had the humor when necessary, and it just had that very nice balance. This graphic novel is a total 180 to that. So they upped the goofiness and they decreased the seriousness of the show basically, which was something I really did not like. There was also no mystery which kept us hooked. There was nothing intense about this Forces storyline. It was just so anticlimactic and there wasn't a huge threat to Central City or even to Team Flash at all. It was just so uninteresting and so boring. Episode 4 with Abracadabra literally posed more of a threat with his antimatter bomb than the whole Forces storyline, and that scene between Barry and Abracadabra was actually intense, unlike the last few episodes of the storyline. The last few episodes of the Forces storyline had nothing interesting. There was terrible dialogue and writing, which I will get into in a bit, but again, there was nothing that was intense at all. There was no mystery within the storyline. The Speed Force's motivations were terrible, and to find out that these forces were created due to the power of love between Barry and Iris, like what the heck? It's just not what I signed up for. It's very cheesy and very cringy as well. When talking about things being intense, this includes the Forces finale where the stakes are supposed to be high and intense, but episode 4 did a much better job in delivering that serious and intense tone whilst also keeping humor when necessary. The Forces finale had none of that. It was not intense at all. It was a very boring episode. Yeah, it was probably the worst, conclusion to a storyline we have had on the show. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is the terrible dialogue and the cringe behind them during the scenes. So yeah, take a look at this scene from episode 11 for example.
Stupid boy! I can see I'm going to have to kill you too.
Like, what the heck was that? Stupid boy. It's just terrible and so cringe. What are we even watching over here? But if you think that that's the end to it, then take a look at this. Or this.
For the last time, I am not into you.
Why don't you stop staring at my six-pack?
Or the multiple different times we had the forces calling each other and calling Barry and Iris as well, sis, mother, father. As I said, the level of cringe during those scenes are just awful. It makes you want to stop because it's just so poorly handled. It feels like Eric Wallace doesn't even care. The fact that we have something like this on TV is just ridiculous. I can't believe they were even okay with putting up or even writing something like this for a TV show. The issue with this is, and I will get into it with the Godspeed storyline as well, but Eric Wallace thinks that everything you see in a comic book can translate perfectly onto a TV show. I think that's his issue, when in reality it doesn't. The dialogue like stupid boy or the chilblain stuff can work in a comic book, but definitely not on a TV show. It automatically just becomes cringe and quirky. And don't even get me started on the whole power of love stuff recurring throughout the season. It makes no sense. As I said before, it's so cheesy and once again just very cringy. Next up is the poor quality writing. Now this isn't something just for the Forces storyline, it's definitely the most problematic for the Forces storyline, but it's something recurring throughout the season as well. But may I remind you guys, some of these writers are the same writers who did seasons 1 to 6. The only difference is the showrunner Eric Wallace, in which I'm not, trying to attack him or anything like that, because he killed it with season 6. He was absolutely amazing with season 6. But with season 7, he absolutely dropped the ball. He had no idea what he was doing. He's someone who has, really cool ideas, but the execution is so poorly handled. And with the writing, could you guys believe that some of the writers who wrote incredibly well thought out seasons like seasons 1 and 2 ended up doing terrible episodes during the storyline? The writing for season 7 is incredibly less thought out. There's always lack of logic. For instance, during season 7 episode 11, where Barry fought the Speed Force, he chucked lightning at the source of energy which gave him his speed, and instead of absorbing it, the Speed Force itself gets hit with its own lightning. Yes, that can be seen as a nitpick, but it's still not logical. It doesn't make sense. Another example is Frost. She herself pleaded for a life sentence without parole, then goes on to break out of prison and become a fugitive, which took away from the storyline she had from episode 7 and 8 in the first place. But then just a couple of days later, after being thrown into prison and breaking out, she is suddenly set free just for stopping meta-fugitives. Once again, the lack of logic over here makes no sense. The whole Force family dynamic with the Forces calling Barry and Iris mother and father is equivalent or possibly even worse than We Are the Flash. It's so cringy. Seeing a 40-year-old man call Barry dad. Not just that, but seeing the Forces itself calling each other bro, sis. Like, they aren't even related. They're not even close to being related, but they call each other bro, sis, and then they call Barry and Iris mother and father. It makes no sense. They aren't even related. They just possess a force. That is literally it. These are writers all together in a big round table agreeing to these ideas. Like, how does that even work? Now, although I did say that I liked Grant Gustin as Barry Allen for season 7, for this graphic novel, Barry Allen didn't feel like himself. He was always the one that was wrong, and it was just very unnatural, and that's not Grant Gustin's fault at all. Grant Gustin killed it as Barry Allen. This is once again the writer's fault. He did something, but then backed out of his plan almost like every single episode, which again is unnatural. And speaking of unnatural, the amount of pep talks and us having Barry talk down every single villain during those episodes was very unnatural, and it's not something that is supposed to happen. You can pep talk like once or twice, but definitely not every single episode. Not only is it just so boring, but it's so repetitive, and it just takes away from all the cool scenes we could have had the Flash do with his incredible powers. All the other seasons of the show had different ways to take down a bad guy. whereas for this, it was just continuous pep talk and nothing else. Yes, there can be times when you should talk down a villain. For example, episode 4 is a perfect example of that, like I mentioned before, but to see him do it every single episode is just not something people tune in to see, especially if he does it for 8 episodes in a row. Another issue I have with this storyline are the character arcs, for example, the Frost one. The Frost storyline with Chilblain really made me dislike this character so much. I used to like her up until season 7 episode 2, and then she went downhill so quickly, just due to how she was written, and they barely did anything for us to care about her. That episode she had with episode 7 was just awful, and yes, episode 8 was a bit better and did make her a bit more likable, but then they just threw that away instantly like it never happened with episode 11, and this storyline with Chilblain is just so uninteresting. I just don't care about it. Chilblain was just a terrible addition to the show. I thought when he was first being introduced, he was going to be introduced as a Flash villain, not a Frost love interest. So yeah, that was a huge disappointment as well. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about is the amount of Team Flash members in Star Labs when Barry is going after a meta. There are just too many characters for no reason. Yes, they could pop in here and there when Barry is not out there doing a mission and the characters are just going to have an interaction with one another. That's absolutely fine. But having every single member on the show, especially some people who are not supposed to be there and would be useless when helping Barry, in Star Labs watching over him is not something that should happen. It takes away from the show, and it just shows that Barry always needs help, which again prevents his character growth, which was one of Eric Wallace's aims for season 7 and then also going into season 8. He wants the Flash to improve, become that hero he's destined to be, but too many cast members inside Star Labs helping Barry prevents that from happening. The only people who should be in Star Labs are Caitlin for the medical stuff, Chester as the Overwatch and the tech guy, and sometimes Allegra or Frost going out there with Barry on the field. That is the real Team Flash, and no one else should be part of it unless, as I said, it involves something which doesn't require Barry going out there chasing after a meta. Iris should be working on her Central City citizen stuff, in which in regards to Iris, she has been very inconsistent this season as well. She has literally no character growth with this Forces storyline, and she barely did anything during the back half of the season as well. Cecile should definitely not be someone who watches over Barry and helps around with Barry going out there in the field. She should do her own thing, whether it's to help Iris and Joe, unless her meta powers come in handy in regards to helping Barry deal with a specific scenario, such as Psych from episode 5. So yeah, I think Team Flash should just be condensed for the characters that are actually meant to be there helping Barry when Barry is out there in the field. But overall for this Forces storyline, I did not like it at all. There were some good moments, as I said, but overall I will give this Forces storyline a 3 out of 10. Now going into the interlude, there was nothing good about this. This was just a terrible idea and it was awful. Firstly, the idea of having 3 filler episodes in a row just makes the season so unengaging and just so boring. It's so unnecessary and it just took away for the next graphic novel, which was the Godspeed storyline. The Cisco episode was a great episode, but the Allegra episode, which I still did not watch, I heard was awful and is the lowest rated episode of the show ever. But also the Cecile episode was awful as well. They did nothing for us to care about Allegra or Cecile, and the fact that they had their own filler episode when they gave us nothing to care about those characters just made no sense. They took away the most important factor off the chart, that being Barry, thus giving us no reason to even watch those episodes at all, in which I did skip episode 14 for that reason. No one cares about Cecile or Allegra, that's just the harsh reality. They did nothing for us to care about those characters, as I said before as well. So to give them their own character-centered filler episodes without the main character on it, it just made no sense. We watched the show for The Flash, not these side characters taking up the spotlight. The reason why the Cisco episode worked was because he was a developed character for 7 years and became a fan favorite, which is why so many people cared about him, and also The Flash was on the episode as well. So that is why the Cisco episode worked. That is why the Chester episode worked, because his interactions with Cisco was great. The same would go if you had like Caitlin for an episode. If you had a Caitlyn centered episode, people would care about it because Caitlyn has been a fan favorite as well. People care a lot about Caitlyn, with obviously still having the Flash on the episode. But the thing with the Cecile and Allegra episode, as I keep saying, they gave us nothing to care about these characters at all, but also they took away the reason why we should watch the episode in the first place, because the Flash wasn't even on it, so they gave us no reason to watch the episode at all. Even if you are going to have a character-centered filler episode, put in Barry, so at least we have the Flash on it and we actually have a reason to watch the episode. And also that certain character who's having the spotlight can interact with the main lead and develop their character like that as well. The Cecile episode was just unwatchable. They tried to tell a story about mental health, which is obviously a very important topic, but the way they tried to tell it on the show, they absolutely bottled it. Now, this next part is just a recurring thing from the Forces storyline all the way up until the interlude, but the lack of Barry was a huge issue as well. For the most of the season, Barry has literally been a side character on his own show. He had no character progression at all for the graphic novel, and he still is the same guy from season 1, where he can barely solve things without help. Let alone this whole season, Barry was not able to take down one bad guy by himself. Barry literally made cameos on his own show. He's been sidelined. The main character has literally been sidelined, thus giving us less of a reason to watch the episodes, especially for the character-centered filler episodes when he was barely even on it. And in the case for the Allegra episode, he was not there at all. The main reason we watch the show is for the Flash, and yes, you can have side stories and still have characters to care about, but not solo side character filler episodes, especially with Cecile or Allegra, without or barely your main character on it. We had a lot of character-centered episodes, such as a Chester episode, we had a double Frost-centered episode, we had a whole Cecile episode, and an Allegra-only episode, most of which have been filler episodes centered around those characters without the main lead on it, or barely without the main lead on it. But where was the Flash-centered episode this whole time until the Godspeed storyline? Where was the main character? And also, the lack of logic and terrible writing also applies to this portion of the season as well. For example, just take a look at this scene over here.
Flash, you've got it all wrong. Nice leotard, by the way.
Thank you.
So over here, Barry goes to confront Rainbow Ranger 2.0, who just robbed all the jewelry in the bank. He basically knows it's a meta, but stands still and does nothing. He doesn't even cuff her up or anything like that. He has a nice conversation with her. She even compliments him, and Barry thanks her. What has happened? Now, this isn't the best comparison, but it was the only robbery scene I was able to find. But just take a look at this scene, for example.
Oh, crap.
So yeah, over here, you can see a massive difference. Instead of standing there and doing nothing and having a nice conversation with the criminal, Barry gets rid of the danger and stops the robber before he does anything else. These two scenes are just a year apart from each other, but you can just see the huge difference in tone which the show has adopted. So yeah, I think that the interlude was a huge miss, and I hope that they learn from their mistakes by not only taking away a more developed story for the next graphic novel, but also having a lot of filler episodes in a row. And again, Eric Wallace confirms that we are having another interlude next season as well. I just hope that it's not a character-centered filler episode without the Flash on it. I'd be fine if it's a character-centered filler episode with the Flash, or if it's like a, a two-parter Grodd episode, for example. If it's something like that, I'd be absolutely fine with it. But it should not exceed 2 episodes, especially if it's in a row. I just hope Eric Wallace takes criticism seriously. He can see what worked and what didn't work, and hopefully he learns from his mistakes and make these parts better for the Flash Season 8. But overall, I really did not like the interlude at all, so I will give a 2 out of 10. But going into the Godspeed Imperative, aka graphic novel number 4, which is the Godspeed storyline. Although most of the season has been very troubling to get through, this Godspeed storyline has been a massive redemption to this season, despite me still having issues with it. This Godspeed storyline is miles better than what we had for the Forces storyline, as well as the interlude, and the quality of the storyline does not even come close to the other two in terms of overall quality and watchability. The Godspeed storyline is literally a Mona Lisa compared to what we had for the past 2 storylines. I loved the amount of speedster scenes we were having all across the graphic novel. We obviously had much more of Barry taking the spotlight. The visual effects were amazing. There was mystery with the Godspeed clones. We had heaps of speedster fight scenes, and obviously we had the Flash family being brought all together, which I absolutely loved. It just made a sandwich of elements we want in an episode of The Flash, and managed to put it for all 4 episodes of the Godspeed storyline. Aside from Grant Gustin's acting being a huge highlight, Jessica Parker Kennedy's new version of Nora West Allen was a really great introduction to the show. I love how she got that older sister role, which made her more mature compared to Nora from season 5. The whole change in personality with this new Nora was something I loved. John Wesley's ship as Jay Garrick continues to kill it as well. I really loved how he was given the mentor role to Bart Allen. His interactions with the other characters were great as well, but the new introduction to the show, Jordan Fisher's Bart Allen aka Impulse, was perfect. Jordan Fisher was an incredible casting for the role. He perfectly embodies this character, and his scenes with every single cast member he interacted with, it just makes it feel like Jordan Fisher has a very genuine close relationship with everyone on set. So yeah, I really loved that as well. Other highlights I would like to bring in are Chester. Chester was great for all of season 7. I really enjoyed him. He's obviously like a Cisco 2.0, but the storyline they were able to tell with Chester, but also how they were able to get him more involved, was something I really liked. I also really liked how they got Caitlin more involved this season as well. Although she barely had anything, like storyline wise, apart from episode 8 where she deals with the struggles of Frost's trial, which was a great storyline for her. I really liked how she was playing that medic role throughout the whole season for season 7. I really enjoyed that. It got Caitlin a lot more involved in Star Labs and with Team Flash, dealing with possible ways to take down villains, or helping August Hart get his memories, or just treating the injured heroes in general. I really liked all of that and how they handled Caitlin. Danielle Panabaker is just amazing. I hope we have more storylines with Caitlin, because we barely had much of her apart from that Frost episode, as I said. So hopefully we see more of Caitlin's storylines. But yeah, I really liked how Danielle Panabaker got more involved as Caitlin Snow with the medical side of things as well. Another thing I absolutely loved was Eobard Thawne's return. He made the finale 10 times better. Obviously Barry had a boost from the Speed Force, which made him extra faster, and that confrontation scene between Eobard and Barry was just so chilling. Thawne charges at Barry, and while in flash time, Thawne is literally frozen compared to Barry. It just shows how powerful Barry has become, and he just made Thawne look so embarrassing during that scene. And with an icing on the cake, Barry mocks him by saying, "I got faster, didn't you?" I just love that. So maybe we could have that, more powerful side of Barry continuing on to season 8. And, we have him being a lot more independent than getting help every single episode. I hope we see that transition. But definitely, we needed more with the Godspeed storyline. I was very underwhelmed by the lack of the original Godspeed. He was a villain teased since the beginning of season 6, and to only have 4 episodes with the Godspeed storyline, with the original Godspeed arriving on only 1 episode, it just didn't make him feel as threatening as he should have been. He should have been there for at least 2 more episodes, and the interlude definitely prevented that from happening, which is more of a reason to why the interlude was such a terrible idea. But if we had 2 more episodes with this Godspeed storyline, with August Hart being there as at least the original Godspeed for 1 more episode other than the finale, then I would have been convinced that he would have been quite a threatening villain. He did do some pretty cool stuff during the finale, but definitely we needed more of August Hart, aka the original Godspeed. Now, this isn't really that big of an issue, but the Godspeed voice. He just sounds like an angry pirate, whereas the Godspeed clones just sounded really menacing. Like, compare this.
And once my ascension is complete, all will bow before the might of Godspeed!
To this.
If you are not an ally, you are an enemy.
The Godspeed clone actually sounds threatening and more villain-like than the original. Once again, dialogue and writing was an issue with this storyline as well, and it's just the same principle once again. Those quirky lines don't work on TV, whereas for a comic book it would. For example, during the finale, when we had Godspeed going up the roof of Star Labs, and then he yells, "Come to daddy, my children." Like, it was just so cringy for a TV show, but it would work if they tried to put it in a comic book. But yeah, I really liked the Godspeed storyline. Those last 4 episodes were just so good, especially the finale, which is one of my favorite episodes of the show. There were a couple of logic issues, such as Kramer being a meta who replicates metahuman powers, but she copies Godspeed's powers, who isn't a meta, because the clones have speed through a velocity formula. They are not metahumans through dark matter, so that didn't really make any sense. Now, although the Speed Force Saber fight scene was sick in my opinion, and I absolutely loved it, I did have an issue with it, and again, it is a logic issue. Godspeed went through all that effort with summoning lightning from the sky to build a Speed Force construct, but Barry and Thawne managed to do it like it was nothing. It literally felt like they pulled out a lightsaber from their belt. But also, someone did tell me this, and I do agree with it, but we have never seen Barry do anything like this before. He wasn't even remotely close to doing something like this. So to see him do it first try made no sense. It is understandable if Bart managed to do it, because we didn't go through 7 seasons with him, and he is the most experienced speedster out of all of them. So it made sense if Bart was able to build a Speed Force construct and build that Speed Force Saber, but it didn't make sense that Barry was able to do it, especially first try. But it was just a really cool fight scene, and I really enjoyed it, but it just didn't make sense logic wise. Enjoyability wise and visually, it was amazing though. I did also have an issue with the Godspeed clones once again during the Flash season 7 finale as well. I understand that they are clones, but to have them continuously repeat, "Kill the adversary, kill the adversary, kill the adversary, kill the adversary." Like, really? I understand if it's 3 times you say it, but not 10 times or even more. It's so repetitive, and once again, it's unnecessary. You could have said it 3 times and just wrapped it up over there. But overall, I really enjoyed the Godspeed storyline. It was the best part of the season and one of the best storylines in the show, but we definitely needed more, and the interlude as well as the shorter season definitely affected the storyline. But overall, I will give the Godspeed storyline a 7 out of 10. Now, in regards to the whole season, the majority was unwatchable and very problematic, but there are some parts I enjoyed, such as episodes 4 and 5 alongside the Godspeed arc, as well as the Cisco episode as well. I want to say that this is the worst season of The Flash, but I'm going to tie it with season 5 because I don't exactly remember how season 5 was like. I knew it was pretty awful, and I knew that it was unwatchable as well. That was my worst season before season 7 came out, and I might have to go over 22 episodes of torture just to see which one's the worst season. But overall, for The Flash season 7, I will tie it with season 5 right now, and I will give The Flash season 7 an overall of a 4.5 or a 5 out of 10. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below how would you rate The Flash season 7 in terms of your rankings. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.